Okay, tonight we got another great lecture. Two good friends of mine, Nate Orchard and Jake Weber. Every year we try to have one or two speakers that talk about buying a company as a way to get into entrepreneurship as opposed to starting from scratch. And there's some real advantages. There are about 300 companies for sale right now in the state of Utah. And if you find one with a great sound product, but maybe it's not managed very well or marketed very well, buying a company, there's lots of ways to buy and purchase a company. And so they're examples. They've had former very successful careers. Nate played in the NFL, and Jake has had a great successful career in business strategy and finance and accounting. And so we're going to introduce them formally in just a minute. Let me just review the schedule with you. Next week is John Schmidt from the Piano Guys. And we're going to wheel this grand piano out, and he's going to play, and he's going to talk about how he built billions of followers through social media and relaunched his career. And he's awesome. If you haven't heard him, he's extremely talented. So he'll be here next week. The following 2 weeks, we're not meeting. The week before spring break, we don't meet. And then during spring break, we don't meet. And then the Wednesday right after spring break, we have Brent Brown from Brent Brown Toyota. It's one of the top Toyota dealerships in the nation for both sales and customer service. So he'll be here on March 20th. So next week, John Schmidt will be the last lecture for 2 more weeks, all right? I just want to say something about Thrift Jam. They have an amazing story, and we like to have students that are still in school speak to show you kind of the struggle they go through. And they kind of built their story right up to the point where they became very successful and didn't tell you how successful they actually have been. When they launched their first reworked product, it sold 1,500. They sold 1,500 of those the first 2 days, and they're now doing amazing revenue, $400,000 or $500,000 in revenue while they're still students here. And we just found out today that they placed in the national semifinals, one of the top startups in America. So they're competing in Canada next week for the top prize of the most innovative company in the United States to be started in the last few years. So another great company with a great story. Okay, I'm going to turn the time over to Logan from our office. He has a brief announcement, and then Nicole will introduce our speakers, and then we'll turn the remainder of the evening over to Nate and Jake.
Awesome. Thanks, Dr. Glasser. I just want to make a quick announcement. So if you guys aren't doing anything after class, over in the business school, we're doing a high-stakes bingo night, and all of the entry donations go to charity, to Common Ground Outdoor Adventures. So it's at 7:30 over in Huntsman Hall, 4th floor, Perry Pavilion. We'd love it for you guys to come. It's for a good cause, and it'll be a good time. So I'll turn it over to Nicole.
Okay, we are super excited for our speakers tonight. Like Mike said, we have Nate Orchard and Jake Weber from Advanced Window Products here with us. They are both fathers of 4. Nate played football at the U, and then he went on to the NFL where he played for 7 years. And then after he retired, he's now the head of installation at Advanced Window Products. And then Nate has had positions at Taft, Snap Finance, and EY. He is now the head of marketing at Advanced Window Products. And so together, they bought the company in October of 2022, and they've had a lot of success since then. So we are super excited to hear from them. Let's welcome Nate and Jake.
The state championship part, though.
He is a state champ as well.
You're supposed to guess which one of us was a state champion, but that's fine.
Okay, so Nate and I both went to Highland High School in Salt Lake, and John Schmidt, who you got next, is he next week? He's also a Highland High School alum, so there's some good things coming out of there. In Highland's in Salt Lake City, or the Highland High School is. As Nate was a state champion, and I was not, but I played in 2 state championships and lost in both of them in football. And Nate got lucky, the one that he played in.
Thanks, brother.
Yeah. Now, just kind of quick introduction to Advanced Window Products. Advanced Windows, we sell, manufacture, and install vinyl replacement windows. Now, that sounds really sexy, doesn't it? Like, you're all sitting in this class like, man, I want to be in vinyl windows someday. That's what I was thinking. I remember when I was in school. No, it's a very unique business model, and something that most other window companies that you've heard of are either the manufacturers or they are dealers, where they don't sell and manufacture and install the windows. So it's a very divided industry. And by us manufacturing and installing them, selling them direct to the customer, we have a full hold on that entire process. And it also gives us the ability, like our margins are a lot better than if you were a dealer, because we don't have that middleman markup. So it gives us the ability to be more competitive with our pricing while also offering a better product. A little bit about myself. So again, I'm Jake Weber. I am from Salt Lake City, was born and raised there, and I graduated from the University of Utah in accounting. Before I went to Utah, I went to BYU, so out of high school went to BYU to play football, and I played there for 2 years before getting injured and having to look myself in the mirror and say, what am I going to do in my career? When I was in school at BYU, my major was football. I didn't even know that I had to have a major, really. I just went to school. I had a counselor that put my schedule together for me, and so I never thought about it until I got injured and decided, I'm going to transfer up to Utah, get closer to my family, and by doing so, I said, I'm majoring in accounting. That's going to be what I do, no matter what, I'm going to do accounting. I had some mentors that had talked to me where they had owned businesses and started businesses, and they were accounting majors. So I said, that's what I'm going to do. And all I knew was that someday I wanted to own a business. My dad owned a business. Nate's dad owned a business. And they coached our teams. They were the ones that had all the flexibility, and it's that's what I want to do someday. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to own a business. So accounting was the first step up at Utah. So then once I graduated from accounting, I went to Ernst & Young, EY, and I did audit there. And so I was there for 4 years, and I was not at all the stereotypical accountant. Everyone in the firm knew that I did not belong, because I knew that I was not going to be in accounting long term. That was a step along the way, and so I was the odd duck. And so I was there for 4 years, waiting for a good opportunity, or the opportunity to get out of accounting. And it was a great foundation, but I knew I didn't want to be a controller, assistant controller, or anything like that. And so it took 4 years to have an opportunity to come up to a company called Snap Finance. And Snap Finance is headquartered in Salt Lake City. So I left EY and went to Snap, and I did corporate development there. So which is essentially investment banking on the internal side of the business. So we were looking at different businesses that we could buy, a lot of business valuation, financial modeling, and that got me out of that accounting realm and was a good stepping stone to someday own a business. And I left. I was there for 2 years and then left and went to it's a men's footwear brand called Taft. And Taft is, I don't know if anyone's ever heard of Taft in the audience, but it's kind of like a younger company. We would sell men's boots, dress shoes, sneakers. They kind of had crazy jacquard woven fabrics with leather cap toes. And so I was the director of planning there, and I was brought on to help grow Taft and to eventually sell it. And so I was there for 2 years before we sold, and I was as director of planning. I managed our cash flow, all of our financial models, the forecasting, and was on the team of 3 of us that selected the assortment every season. So we'd get 150 samples from Spain, where everything was manufactured. And we'd get to sit down and, hey, these look pretty dope. We're going to have these shoes. We're going to do this. And so we'd pick 12 to 15 every season. And Taft sold. I was the kind of playing point guard during the sale of Taft, while at the same time looking at advanced windows and buying advanced windows. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, but Nate's got to introduce himself.
Thanks, brother. It's good to be with you guys here this evening. I just want to give a quick shout out to Dr. Mike Glauser, and thank you for having us, and Andy and Paige and Nicole and the whole crew here. Really appreciate you guys giving us this opportunity to really use our platform. For me, being in here in this auditorium, bright lights, give me a little PTSD. Just takes me back to my college days and sitting here, right? But this is really cool. We all have a story to tell. Everybody has their own unique way, whether you're a first-generation grad from high school like myself. Everybody in here has a story, and Jake and I are just grateful to be able to stand up here today and just kind of share our story. Quick background on me and who I am. I was born in Los Angeles, California, in Inglewood, and I had a brother that was in a gang, a single mom who was married and divorced multiple times. I was a witness of domestic violence, and I was homeless in California for a period of time. Moved here to Utah. In order for my brother to get out of the gang, the only way you get out of a gang is you're either dead or you get married. So he decided to get married at 16 years old, move here to Utah. That's kind of what brought our family out here. And here I am, 9, 10 years old, living with a 16-year-old. And, I'm a full-time caregiver to my niece. And my life was, that was my world. I didn't know any better. I did construction, manual labor growing up as a kid with my mom in California. From building brick walls, cinder block walls, to driveways, breaking the concrete with a sledgehammer. That was my life. And again, didn't know any better. Was I happy in those circumstances? Yeah. Christmas for me was, if we got to stay in a motel, it was amazing. I'd have my little manual or the little brochure or whatever from Target, right? You get to circle what you want as a kid, so excited. Santa's going to bring me all this stuff. And in the hotel, they had those wall heaters that had the little hole on the bottom. I'm like, you know what? I think Santa's for sure coming out of there. It'd be my lucky day. He's for sure bringing the PlayStation out of that thing for me. But again, that was the norm. That was my life. I didn't know any better. I didn't start going to school consistently as a kid until 6th grade. I went to Parkview Elementary in Glendale, where I lived. And so halfway through 6th grade, I start school. And then for the first time, I played organized sports at 12 years old. So before living in, the ghetto of Glendale, I was in Rose Park. And for me, my kind of entrepreneurial journey started in Rose Park. I lived in a basement apartment with my mom. And what we do is we go to Smith's and we get the variety pack of chips, some Twizzlers, and a few other things. And I had this little small window well that neighborhood kids would come knocking on, and I'd say, what do you want? They said, oh, a bag of chips and this and that. It was like a drug dealer, but it was just candy. And so I'd give them, 50 cents for a bag of chips, Twizzlers here, and anything to make a little side money to help my family out in our living situations. So started playing organized sports at 12. Here we are. A few months into sports, I come home one day, and they got this big sign on our front door, and it's an eviction notice that instead of my brother paying rent, that my mom would send through MoneyGram and Western Union. Nowadays we got Venmo, but instead of paying the rent, he would use that money for his friends to party and do all that stuff, right? So here we are getting evicted, having to go back to California, where for me there was nothing there, right? So started playing organized sports. I had this AAU basketball coach who lived probably 15, 20 minutes away. And here I am, 12 years old, not having a way to get there. I go across the street, ask the electrician, who's a good friend of mine, if he could give me a ride. And he had one too many to drink. He said, I can't drive, but I'll slide you a 20 if you get us there safely. So I'm like 12 years old. I played Grand Theft Auto, all these racing video games. Like, I can figure it out, right? So I get in this big old electrical truck and drive up the road. I drop him off to his girlfriend's, walk to Coach's house, knock on the door, and I asked if I could live with them because we were getting evicted. They said no. Eventually came around and said yes, right? And then from there, it's kind of how my relationship with Mike started, with his son and their family in that beautiful neighborhood with just some amazing people. Fast forward, right, here I am, 12, 13 years old. Like some of you maybe just, not really knowing what your purpose is or feeling like I don't belong. I went through a period of depression, right? Suicidal thoughts, because here I am, 12, 13 years old in an environment, in a place I'm very unfamiliar with, living with a white family. My first breakfast with them was a English muffin with butter and cinnamon, and I'm like, yo, this is crazy. This is amazing. Where have I been my whole life, right? And so it's just little things like that. I'm like, wow. But again, fast forward again through high school. School was never my strong suit because, education was never a priority in my home growing up. But by my senior year, I made it a promise to myself that, you know what, I'm gonna buckle down, get things right, get a 4.0 my senior year, win a state championship in football. Sorry, Jake. Win a state championship in basketball, and just flooded with offers, right, to go to these different universities. Commit to the University of Utah. I played there for 4 years. I get a degree in economics, and then
Nate had a full ride offer to the University of Utah as a freshman in high school. Like that's just so you know, like that he was the freak athlete in high school.
That's why I won a state
He's
championship.
He was all right. He was all right.
But married my beautiful wife my junior year. Jake's sister, just so you guys know, it's my brother-in-law. And
We know each other pretty well now.
pretty well. So then, yeah, and my wife and I have been married 10 years, coming up on 11. We got 4 girls.
You have 4 kids.
Or 4
2
kids,
girls,
sorry.
2
4,
boys.
4 kids, 2 girls, 2 boys. And thank you. But yeah, beautiful thing. And so this is life, right? There's chapters and phases through life that we all go through. I was very fortunate and got to play in the NFL for 7 years. Was drafted in the 2nd round by Cleveland. And was there for 3.5 years. And then
Wait, pause. I need to chime in here. Nate's skipping his college career at Utah. He was the face of Utah football. He was called the mayor of Sac Lake City when he was there. He led the nation in sacks and won the Ted Hendricks Award and the
Morris.
Morris.
Yeah.
So the Ted Hendricks Award is given to the best defensive end in the country. That was Nate. Was not a guy out of Alabama. It was not someone playing for LSU. It was not a guy out of Michigan. Nate won that award. And then the Morris Trophy is given to the best defensive player in the Pac-12, which Nate won that. I'll be his little hype man. Keep going, Nate.
So after college, go on to the NFL, get drafted 2nd round. 3.5 years in Cleveland, and then my career in Cleveland ends because, change of management. 3 years there, 3 general managers, 3 head coaches, 3 defensive coordinators. They let me go. I go to Buffalo, pack up a whole, truck, sign with Buffalo, and I'm only there for 3 weeks before they release me. And prior to that, right, we signed a 12-month lease, all this stuff. So I got the whole family, leave Buffalo, go to Kansas City, there for 8 weeks, and then get released from Kansas City, go to a tryout, tear my calf in the tryout, doing a simple drill. So during that tryout, Tennessee, they just gave me a ice pack, crutches, and an airplane ticket home. So then recover from that torn calf, go to Seattle for a few weeks. They let me go and sign Ziggy Ansah, sign on with Miami. In Miami, I'm there for the whole preseason, lead the preseason in sacks, doing great. They end up letting me go. That's a whole other turn of events. And then go to Washington, Miami, come home, and then I'm home for 12 weeks. For 12 weeks, I installed Windows for a few days and then flew to a different city every week and tried out for different teams at Atlanta, New York, San Francisco, right? Kind of go down the list. And then finally signed with Washington, have a good time there for a few years, and then Minnesota, Green Bay, and then back to Washington to wrap up those 7 years, right? So how many of you have heard of like the script in the NFL? I'm sure some of you guys have, right? Well, that's a lie, because I wish I would have gotten a script, because if I knew that was the scenario there, I probably wouldn't have done it. My wife would have been like, yeah, that's not happening. And so wrap that all up. And so towards the end of my career, that's when Jake and we planted seeds earlier, before we closed on the advanced windows, but this has always been a dream of ours to own a company together. And during my time in Green Bay, Minnesota, and Washington, we kind of worked on this transaction to make it happen. But again, feel very fortunate to be here today with you guys. I know some of you may or not be business majors or whatever it is, and some of the lingo you may not catch, but I hope something in my story you can relate and connect with and understand that, through my life, through my journey in the NFL, to be here today, I just want to say, one, that you matter, right? You're all important to yourselves or to somebody. But on top of that, you have the opportunity to write your own script, to write your own story. You determine how it ends. For me, I could have easily thrown in the towel and be like, you know what, here I am living in Inglewood. We live off food stamps, which back then I thought I was a big baller if anybody had the actual food stamps. Just times were different and challenging, and I was always told, I wouldn't be anything, I wouldn't come to anything. Don't let someone's opinion of you become your reality. Just feel very fortunate, again, to be here today. Wanted to share our stories of who we are, but also just the route it took us to get to where we are today as far as acquiring advanced windows.
Thank you.
Yep.
As Nate's saying, everyone has a story. Everyone has events that happen in their life. You don't know why it happened, but the end result is purely based on how you react to these different events. Nate and I had very different upbringings. He married my sister, and we're best friends. But Nate has experience. Our roles at Advanced Windows are very different. Where I'm overseeing all of the sales and marketing, and a lot of just the internal office processes. Where Nate is overseeing all of the customer facing, because we have that front end with the sales, and then there's the back end with the manufacturing, and then the install and the customer service. And so we're in our building. We're on different floor. I'm up on the second floor. Nate's down on the first floor. He is very hands-on with everyone. You can kind of sense he is as genuine and as good as they come. He has the ability to relate to everyone, and his skill set and my skill set, they
complement each other.
Yeah. Boom. You see that? Check that out. Yeah. But look, so entrepreneurship. I always envision that. Hey, I start a business. What is my idea? What am I going to start? I didn't have ideas. As I'm in school, as I'm at EY, sitting there working 80 hours a week, at Snap Finance, 80 hours a week, what's my idea? How am I getting out of here? What am I going to do? It clicked to me. I'm going to buy a business. Why would I not go that, what I like to call acquisition entrepreneurship? Go that route where let's figure out something that complements our skill sets. Where Nate and I knew we wanted to partner on something. And it's hey, what are the skill sets? What do we bring to the table? And that's kind of what we laid out at the very beginning. What can we do? I understand accounting, the financial, the modeling, the data analysis, more of that, the inner workings of the business. Nate's got that ability to, we got an upset customer, Nate's going to make him happy. And Nate's going to be able to talk them off that cliff. And Nate's going to be able to get to our employees. How do you connect with employees? You got 50 employees that are all very different, that have different backgrounds. How do you get them motivated? How do you get them to where they care about their work? Nate is amazing at that. And so we have these different skill sets that complement one another. And we said, hey, we're going to buy a business. Let's go that route rather than starting something. And so we're on that search. How are we going to find this business? So Nate's dad founded Advanced Windows 38 years ago. Kind of tell that story about just at the beach in Newport.
Yeah, so, it was about 5 years ago. I was in the middle of my playing career, was in my second or third year in the NFL, hoping to make my big break, sign a big $50 million contract, and do all the
I was hoping for it too.
But it never came to fruition, right? But at the time, Jake and I on the beach in Newport with my dad said, hey, we had these different private equity companies that were approaching my dad and his partners, looking to acquire their business. They were looking to exit, and this was an option for them. So Jake and I at the time planted the seed, like, hey, just hold off, give it a few years, and Jake and I want to buy your partners out and go into business with you, And, fast forward a few years later, they're still in the search as far as, wanting to sell their company. My career is slowly coming to an end. I see the writing on the wall. Again, going into my last year in 21, I wasn't on a team all of 21. And then halfway through the season, my wife and I, on November 2nd, we're going into the hospital. She's going to get induced, so we're excited. You know what? I said, my playing career is over. This is fine. I have accepted it. So we're packing up bags, getting ready to go to the hospital, and my phone rings, and here it is. It said Minnesota Vikings on there. I was like, there's no way. So you got to be kidding me. So I pick it up. It's the Minnesota Vikings calling, wanting to sign me. Explained to my wife. She's like, you got to do it. It's an opportunity. So we had my son at 9:45 p.m., and at 6 a.m. I'm on a flight to Minnesota and was gone for 10 weeks. But during that time, we kept working on the deal, right? So laid everything out for my dad as to how this could work. Jake and I, again, exploring different avenues from an SBA to private equity and those different things while I was away in the NFL, and ultimately led us to where we are today.
Yeah, and so with that, as we decided that we wanted to buy something, we had our criteria. It's what are you looking for in a business? And Mike hit on it or Dr. Glauser hit on it in the beginning, talking about finding a business that is an established business that has a great product that is maybe a little dated in their operations. So we were looking for something that's hey, I like cash flow. Cash flow is king, and we wanted to find a business that had cash flow, that had a customer base, and where it's given customers and proven years of experience. We've got 38 years under our belt. We've been there for a year and a half, but on our marketing, we've been 38 years. That's how long we've been doing windows. And most of our team has been there for 15 to 25 years, but we've been around for 38 years, and we have hundreds and hundreds of reviews. And so there's a lot of value in those. And so we walked in and said we did some evaluating of the financial statements, figuring out what the value of the business was, and then figured out, hey, could the business afford any type of loan? To buy the business, can the business cash flow that? And we quickly, at first glance, yeah. It definitely can. But the challenge that we were running into is once you find that target business, the target company, it's how do you execute that? How do you secure that business? There's a lot that goes into an acquisition. And I think that's probably why some people would rather just go that route of starting something. Because you start something, you have hurdles of you've got to figure out customers, you got to establish yourself, getting cash flow. But there are different hurdles when you start something. I would rather go that route of let's figure out how we get over that hurdle of putting the deal together. It took us a year and a half, but we can go that route and know that we can afford to pay for any the bank loan or whatever it is we have. And the other thing that's really important with finding a target company is does that business have a unique selling proposition? Has anyone heard that term before? A USP, unique selling proposition. That any successful business out there, you look at Amazon, what's their unique selling proposition? What do they do that no one else does? Next day delivery, day of. I'm ordering something for my children Monday morning, I'm getting it Monday night. Who's doing that? You can't get that anywhere else. These successful companies have this unique selling proposition, and that is where you get that value that can't be matched. And with Advanced Windows, our unique selling proposition is that we sell the windows, we manufacture them, we install them. So we have that full, the entire process for the customer.
And we warranty it for life.
And then have the lifetime warranty on it.
Yeah. So that's really what separates us compared to, someone who may go a dealer route, versus, who they get their windows from, assortment of other window companies. Again, what makes us unique is we are the manufacturer. We are your one-stop shop is what we like to say, right? We have our specialists come out to your home, assess your windows with you, and then from there they decided to go with us. We send out our measuring tech, measurements come back in, and then from there it gets put into production, to manufacturing. We have our installation team go out, and then once the windows are installed, we warranty and service it for life. And so, again, something that separates us, when you talk about a unique selling proposition, not many are able to do what we've done. And again, being around for 38 years and taking advantage of a company that maybe the last 10, 15 years have gotten kind of stagnant with what they do, using my image, right? Being University of Utah, Highland High state champ, unlike some people. And then, people understand that, right? And so it's really cool and it's really fun. And to me, I take great pride in it. Being over the operations, I talked about this with a group of people earlier, but just our installers do, and when they go into someone's home, it can seem like a very invasive process, but we try to make it as white glove as possible, leave them with a good feeling, understanding that they are investing in their home, and they have people who are in there that actually care about their home and the product that is going in, and that leave them with just a good taste in their mouth.
Yeah, and it's like to get to that point, like now we can sit back. I think back to 2 years ago when we were in a whole different world, the stress of like trying to actually buy this business. But we spent a lot of time figuring out, like, is Advanced Windows, like, we had the advantage of Nate's dad being a partner there. The challenge with that is, like, it's family, and also, like, not sure, like, the negotiating with, like, Nate's dad can sometimes be, like, a little bit challenging, especially, like, in my spot, where a lot of, like, the numbers and when you start talking dollars with a guy that I've known for most of my life, that could be a little bit awkward. So I know, like, everything about, like, and then we're stepping into, like, his business, like, we are looking under the bed, and I know all of everything about him. That's a little uncomfortable for the person who's selling, especially if they're staying on. And so a lot of these little hurdles, we had to get over that. And so because of some of those hurdles, we said, hey, maybe we should be buying a different window company. We got really hooked on the windows as we were going from, like, looking at these different markets that we could be, like, businesses that were for sale. There was one in Florida that was a cosmetic company. They're like, hey, that has, like, the financials look good, like, solid revenue, a few $1 million a year. It wouldn't be that expensive. We could do an SBA loan. But, like, that is a want. And, like, Taft, the men's shoes, I was there during COVID. And I learned what it is like. I managed our cash flow. Like, I knew exactly what was going on when, was it February 14th? It was March, February. When was COVID? Whatever that day was. I remember that day where, like, all of a sudden our sales stopped. And we had to then pivot and say, like, hey, how are we going to manage all of our costs? We're cutting all unnecessary costs. How long can we burn our cash if we don't sell anything? How long can we survive? Men's footwear, high-end shoes and boots, that's a want. Cosmetics, that's a want. Windows are a need. And that's where we said we got dialed in on windows like that. Everyone needs windows. Tell me a house that doesn't have windows. Can't, unless maybe it's somewhere that I've never been. Every house needs windows. And you have a leaky window, you have a draft, like that becomes a need. And in an economic downturn, you're pretty safe because people are still going to need windows. And so that's where we really focused on our search. And so we wanted to do our diligence. We looked at Advanced Windows and then looked at a couple other window companies, something that we could start in Phoenix if we wanted to, more of a high-end window company. We looked at starting our own dealer. We looked at another dealer that was in Salt Lake as well. And you sign an NDA, you get the financial statements, and you start combing through the financials and trying to understand, like, what's the value of this business? How much would you pay to buy this business? And there was nothing that could even come close to Advanced Windows because of that unique selling proposition, because of the years that it's been around and the revenue. And we had this idea when buying the business, it was like, hey, we're going to get an SBA loan. Do you guys know what an SBA loan is? Has anyone ever heard of that? So it's a government-backed loan to encourage small business, like, acquisition. So it's someone that he's 75 years old. He's looking to sell his business that he's had for his entire career, and the government will back that loan. The issue is that it only goes up to, I don't know what the exact, it's like a 3 to 4, maybe $5 million loan. So we thought that was the route we were going to go until really Advanced was bigger than that. So we did not qualify for an SBA loan. So we immediately said, okay, what are we going to do? How do we figure out, how do we buy this business? We've got this great idea. We've got this strategy. Nate talked about, like, he's going to be the face. He's going to be the guy, like, he's very relevant in Salt Lake City. And with our marketing, we have our skill sets, and they match up, and it's perfect for this business. How do we actually do it? And, like, that is where we spent a year negotiating with banks. And we had to, the financials of the business were in shambles, in a sense, like, they didn't know anything. The owners knew nothing about their financials. They couldn't tell you what EBITDA was. They couldn't even tell you what their net income was, because they, every year, did everything to operate at break even to avoid paying the tax, which is very common in a small business. The issue is that, like, it wasn't necessarily a small business per se. And so it made it very difficult to take your financials to either an investor saying, like, hey, like, we need X millions of dollars to buy this business. Will you provide the funding for it? And they'd look at the financials and say, like, dude, there's negative equity on the balance sheet. What are you talking about? There's no net income. There's nothing. And so we had to spend a lot of time. This is where my accounting background came in, is I could go through the financials. And, like, I had to basically, for 5 years, restate the financials over 5 years, go through every cost, figure out what was the true adjusted EBITDA to figure out the value. And then Nate and I would go and sit down with different banks. And we're just saying, like, hey, we explored the route. First, it was like private equity. Let's find a high net worth individual that we know, that's in our network, that we could go to see if they would, like, we pitch it to them, we sell them on it, like, this is a great idea. Now, can you provide the funding for it? And we actually found someone who said he would do it with us. And then we started looking at the equity cap table and what we were going to get out of it. Like, hold up. Like, we're not going to own 4% of this business. Like, that's not what we want to do. So we quickly learned, like, private equity is not going to be our route. So then it's like, how do we get a bank loan that's not an SBA to buy this business? So we had to get creative, and we had to accept that, like, look, as an entrepreneur, you take risks. Mike can speak to that. Anyone who's going to step up here on the stage is going to talk about the risk that you take when you start a business or when you run a business, the stress, the crazy things that happen that you don't expect. Like, one of those was like, look, we had to put everything on the line. It's like, hey, we had to look at each other and I like, bro, do you really want to do this? Like, is it worth, like, our houses, our cars, everything we own?
They can have my Subaru Legacy, fine.
Yeah. Everything's risked. Like, everything's on the line. But you have to have assets that are backing that loan. Most banks that we went to, we probably talked to 10 to 15 banks. They looked at us like, oh, this is great. You guys are passionate. This is a cool idea. But, like, yeah, we could never get this approved. We can't do that. But this is where, like, we didn't give up. Like, we knew, like, hey, this is a unique opportunity. We could see the vision, and we persisted. And I think any successful entrepreneur, that is what they do. You have to persist, and you have to, like, understand the risk, and, like, you have to be able to pivot and make sure that, like, you make things work. And we finally found a bank that would listen to us and explore and get creative. It's actually, but it took us a long time to get to that point. And then it was like, okay, now we've got the funding figured out. We're at the same time, we're negotiating with the owners, the partners. Like, hey, this is what it's going to look like. Here's the value. And there were ups and downs. And one of the partners backed out 3 or 4 different times. And those were always, like, difficult conversations. I'm, like, sitting there, like, walking on eggshells, trying to get him, because we didn't have an investment banker doing any of they didn't have an investment banker, and we didn't have one. And so we were negotiating, like, with them directly. And those were some challenging conversations. And like he would back out and say the deal is off, our funding gone. And then actually they're back on. So then we're having to figure out piecing it all together. And after a year and a half, we were able to figure out the magic formula from the to the seller's note to the bank loan, and it's turned out to be the best thing that's ever happened to us. But that process is not an easy one. And that right there is exactly why some people would say, like, I'm just going to start something. I've got this idea. I'm going to start something. The flip side is that, look, we now have cash flow. We can easily service the bank debt, and we're going to pay it off. It was a 7-year amortization on it, and the goal is to have it in the next year, so 2.5 years. So that's what we're targeting, just to get that off the books, and so we can sleep at night. That's going to be a really good night of sleep. When
so nobody comes to steal my Subaru.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Important.
Yes. But now it's like the question is like, what do we plan to do with it? What's our plan?
Yeah, so again, a company for the last 10, 15 years that's really been stagnant. Our goal and our vision is one, get it to where we see it is, just a big figure, a pivotal company in the community as far as its contributions to the community, and just being able to stand behind it, and along with the employees. We've had the employee retention has been amazing. We have people that have been there for 10, 15, some even over 30 years, which is we feel very fortunate for that. But really, it's just growing the company to its full capacity and some, right? Plans on expanding up north, down south to St. George, which we just opened up a market down there. But all things that we want to do with the team that has been just pivotal over the years. The biggest thing, when Jake and I came in, like any company, whether it's a private equity or just new ownership, for me, when I was in the NFL, you get a new general manager or head coach. It's like, oh my gosh, you're walking on eggshells. You want to prove yourself to these coaches. The moment we came in, the one thing we wanted to change and made a priority was just the culture and making sure that people, one, felt appreciated, that they were recognized for the work that they do on a daily basis, and making it, again, an environment where people look forward to coming to work, right? That they can thrive each and every day, that they understand their value. And so those are some of the things, again, that we're aligned on, that we see as this company continues to grow. That just really gets us excited.
Yeah, and they said, like, you talk about growth. Like, that's what gets me excited. Like, I like thinking about growth. I like sales. I like, hey, marketing. What can we do? How can we improve our hook? How can we sell more? But then sell, you got to fulfill it. And so we, like, on a daily basis, we are in meetings. We're sitting down trying to figure out how we can improve our manufacturing process. What machinery do we need to buy? Like, guys, like, I knew that much about Windows before we started the diligence process with buying advanced windows. I knew that Dave Orchard, Nate's dad, had a great life. Like, he coached every team, and everyone in the neighborhood was like, hey, I want to be Dave Orchard someday. Whatever he does, no one knew what he did, but I want to be him someday because he coaches every team, and he's always there as a great lifestyle. And so I didn't know anything about Windows. And that's what I think is unique. Like, when you buy a business, you don't have to know the product. Like, I could step into a candy business and like look at the financials and figure out, hey, these are where like the weaknesses are. This is what these are the areas that we need to improve on a financial basis. We could walk in and figure out, like, you can immediately feel the culture and see, are employees happy? Like, do people like coming into work? And that's really like our focus right now. The last year and a half is like, how do we get the most out of our employees? How do we get them to where like they care a little bit more about that window that they're installing, that they don't like skip any steps, that they don't cut corners, so that caulk that's going on the interior of that window, that it actually looks nice. So that homeowner, when they come back and they just bought windows, it's $25,000 that they just spent on these new windows in their house. It's like Christmas. They've been saving up for 2 years to buy these windows, that when they go look at the windows, they're like, dang, like, these are beautiful. This is what I envisioned. That hasn't always been the culture. The last 15 years has been kind of that, just like stagnant, no process improvement, like let's just kind of keep things status quo. There wasn't as much concern about that end customer. We've kind of dialed in on that with having a happy customer at the end of the day, where they can then tell their friends, tell their family, like when windows get brought up or like the neighbors walk by, like, dang, you got new windows. Like where'd you get those? That they can recommend us. I think that's like the number one source of, like a number one lead is someone that is a referral. And the other thing that just really, we're a local company. All of our employees live in the greater Salt Lake area. And most of our business is in that greater Salt Lake area. We cover everything from St. George up to southern Idaho. And we have plans to expand and to copy paste our model into different markets. Like that's the end goal, is to be in about 5 or 6 markets, which drives the multiple on your EBITDA to get the higher valuation. But in the meantime, it's like, hey, how do we take care of our employees? How do we make a difference in the community? How do we make it so that we have satisfied customers as well as employees that enjoy coming to work? That's what's fun, is like I've been in that super corporate world of public accounting. And like I've been like where it's like 1 a.m. and like I'm sitting there at my computer just like, what am I doing? Like, why am I doing this? Like I knew there was a reason. And to now be where we are, where it's like every day's a game, we're figuring out what levers can we pull to sell more windows? What do we need to do to get our employees more motivated? We're evaluating performance. And like, who deserves a raise? Who can we bring to tears this year because like they just got a raise and it's gonna change their lifestyle? Like that's what we get to do now. It is fun, and like that's what's rewarding about it. And this, as far as like entrepreneurship goes, like it is like this course, like with what you guys get to learn, the people you get to hear from, like this is real life stuff. A lot of times, and like I'm not gonna say anything about specific classes that I took, but like there was stuff that I was in class like, bro, I'm never going to deal with this in my life. Like this does not matter one bit. This stuff here, like this is real life, and this is stuff that can be applicable and can change like the direction of your career. You're all here for a reason. Like I know we have different majors in here, but you're looking at, hey, how can I better myself? That's why we're in school. And this is the stuff that is applicable. And they're real life experiences, and it's fun. Like this is the best thing we've ever done. Was playing in the NFL is pretty cool. Like don't get me wrong, but like owning a window company, dang, like that's even better, right?
Longevity.
Yeah.
Get to save my body. No, it's really fun. Like seriously, the 7 years in the NFL were dream years of mine. My family created some amazing memories with my family, extended family, right? Traveling to games, eating these amazing dinners. But right now, doing this with Advanced Windows, owning a business, knowing the impact I could have in the community, and changing the lives of our employees, all those things bring me just so much satisfaction and happiness that I wouldn't change it for the world. So, yeah.
We want to open. We've got a few minutes. We want to open up to Q&A. Yeah. Does anyone have questions? Like, please ask some questions. Yeah. So the backer did not back out. It was one of the partners that we were buying out. So he had been the face of the business he had been like like on the marketing stuff, like, and he had a lot of pride in what he had been. And he was 60 years old and wasn't quite sure if he wanted to sell quite yet. One thing that we were able to do is we offered them a better deal, like cash up front, versus an earnout, which most of the time when a business is bought by private equity, they will pay X amount up front, say 60 to 70% up front of the value of the business, and then have the remaining 40 to 30% on earnout. So the previous owner will have to be there for 2 to 3 years and hit certain targets. And in order for them to make that 30 to 40% of the value, they have to hit these targets. And the owners of Advanced Windows did not want that. That was very foreign to them. And it's like, wait, like, why would I not? I just want my money now. And so we were able to put together something that was enough of a hook for him to actually sell. But it's never, as one of like the original owners, like it's hard for them to give that up. Like that's been their baby, that's been their whole life. His whole purpose in life was coming to the office every day. And so understanding that why he would back out, like we could understand that, but it was just the negotiating and like the persistence and like essentially telling him he was going to die if he didn't sell the business. That was what we had to do.
What do they call that? Seller's remorse?
Yeah, seller's remorse, yeah. Yeah.
What was the process of rebranding like after still manufacturing? What was that whole process?
Yeah, that's a good question. So everyone has watched like TV and seen like the small business commercials. Like they pop up and it's like, oh, that is a small local business. And it's like, it's kind of like a janky commercial. It's just like, eh. Like we wanted to go away from that because a lot of the ads were that. It was the old partner that's sitting there like at a desk just talking for 30 seconds. Like there was nothing catchy. You didn't remember it. And so we said, hey, we need to update what we're doing. A lot of like the marketing was their strategy was all like Google paid ads and TV. And so we said, look, we're going to diversify that. Like with the experience that I have in like social media marketing, some of the digital marketing, radio is something that we've hit really hard, which the previous owner said radio could never work. We knew coming into it, like radio was going to be part of our branding, where we get on sports radio, and like the local ESPN 700 and 1280 The Zone, we're on with them every 2 weeks, and we'll do an in-studio with them. And what's great is that like we've got this dude that's played in the NFL, and like the people who listen to sports radio want to hear about Nate Orchard. He's the mayor of Sac Lake City. Most people in Salt Lake that are Utah fans know who Nate is. So he said, let's capitalize on that image. And the people know him, and like immediately it's like, oh, like it's funny. You go to like a home show, if there's some like event or something, like people, you see like grown men that are like giddy, like fanboys, like, oh my gosh, Nate, like I remember this and this and this. So, like, it's crazy. Like there are people that are like very loyal Utah football fans. And by having that image, you immediately have their trust. And so we knew we wanted to do that with radio and TV, getting Nate up there on TV. It's like a little different in our branding, like on TV. We were very particular with who we used and the content that we put out and wanted to look professional. Something that's like pops with color and that like can get your attention. Everything in marketing is about attention and like some type of hook. Like we just had the dinner beforehand, and the hook to this class was someone was walking around campus handing out hot chocolate. And like that said, hey, like what is this for? And there was a little hook of hot chocolate. And then you get some hot chocolate and you learn about the class, like, oh, that's interesting. I want to come to that. I'll take that class. So there's figuring out a hook, and that's from the branding, the colors. No new logo. We've kept the old logo just because it's been around for so long, but just the image and appearance of everything has been updated.
Yeah, this question's for Nate. So in your experience in the NFL as well, because I know people that go from like business to business to business, is you going from team to team to team back and forth. What did you kind of learn from that experience going from team to team to team that you now apply in this senior business?
That's a great question.
That is a great question. You know, it was tough because, again, here I am coming out of college, winning all these awards, get drafted in the second round, Cleveland for 3.5 years, and then from there the roller coaster kind of begins. And like anything in life, there's a lot of politics that get into it, right, and favoritism and this, that, and the other. I've learned very quickly in my time in the NFL. I apply it in life. It's just don't let them change who you are. Right, through the highs and lows, through the ups and downs of how they may badmouth you, no matter the image they put out there about you, stay true to who you are, right? For me, I always it's funny, my wife made cookies. When I was in college, she made these cookies and cream cookies every Friday before the game.
They're so good.
And so I started doing that in the NFL. And so I always carried it with me every team that I went to. My wife would make the cookies, or I'd make them personally. I'd bring them in on a Saturday before the game. Guys always loved it. So I got to the point where I'm like, screw these guys, screw this team. Why am I doing this? But, again, guys would ask about it. I bring it. And it was almost like a way of bonding with my teammates and stuff like that. and with people throughout the facility. Some of my favorite people, no matter what team I was on, was always the guys in the equipment room, the people in the kitchen, and even the athletic trainers, right? Because to me, those are the people that are the backbone to our success, right? Without the guys in the equipment room, we wouldn't have the padding, the uniform, the clothes we need to perform on Sundays, and even practice. With the people in the cafeteria, without them, we wouldn't be able to eat, right? So a lot of those people behind the scenes were some of my favorite people. But again, my journey through the NFL, I would say, that I apply in business is just don't let them change who you are. So taking all that I've learned in the NFL from how Washington treated the receptionist at the front desk. Obviously, it's not like that anymore, but we had this receptionist at the front desk in Washington. She'd been there for 30 years. And I asked her, let's go down for dinner, Becky. She's like, no, thanks. I'm like, well, why not? She's like, I can't. I'm like, what do you mean you can't? She's like, I've been here for 30 years, and I've never been allowed to eat in the cafeteria once, and it just crushed me, right? So I told myself, when I do own my own business one day, I'll make sure I treat my people the way I want to be treated.
And that, to go along with that, Nate is very good at, we have installers, which is like a very blue-collar position. We have some of our office employees that are highly educated, and then we have people in the shop that don't speak English. And so it's a lot of different personalities, and Nate is able to connect with all of them and bring the best out in all of them. I credit that to his time in the NFL, where he was able to connect with some of those people that it wasn't the GM, it wasn't the quarterback, it wasn't these guys that are the face of the franchise, but they were more of the behind the scenes people that made everything work, where without them you couldn't get there. That's how a lot of our employees are. It's they're behind the scenes. Nate's the face of it, but our employees, the installers, we can't do anything without them. And Nate is very good at connecting with them and bringing out the best in them.
One more question.
You got a question?
So what's been the most cost-effective way of marketing, for cheap? Radio had to be expensive. If you were to start over, what would you do to get your brand name out there as a local market?
Yeah, radios can be, it's funny, you say radio's expensive. We spend, it's $1,200 on a radio, a segment. Our return on that is 100 times. So we sell 5 jobs from it. We end up making, it's a couple $100,000 off it. But you have getting it out there. I am of the social media. I think is a good way. If you have, I look at Taft. My time at Taft, Advance didn't have a social media. There was no Instagram account around before. That is a way that you can easily get some you get some creative content. You get a good photo, a good photographer with a good product. You can get something out there where it's going to catch some attention. I would social media is the first thing that I think of, just because of that, where I've been at Taft. Other branding things that we've done, it's interesting because we focus on driving conversion. Advance has been around us, the brand awareness, that's not our focus. Our focus is how do we get lower in that funnel and hook the customer, find the guy that needs windows, and have something in that messaging that hooks them. And so the branding it's going to be more of that, the social media, maybe some digital, you could always go pay-per-click, with Google, figuring out the keywords, and whether it's a competitor. We do some marketing where it's if someone searches for one of our competitors, we're going to be the paid ad. We're the first thing that pops up, which is the point where it's almost annoying because we get people calling for customer service needs from a competitor, and it's oh, you've got the wrong number. I Googled it and I clicked the phone number. What are you talking about? Some old people that don't know how Google works. But yeah, that's a good question though. So when we get an online lead, someone hops on our website and says hey, I'm interested, I need a free quote on my windows. We get that lead and it goes to one of our sales reps, and we have 8 sales reps, and whoever's in the showroom at that time, usually we'll get those internet leads. It shuffles through, and they are trained. Our goal is to, the first time that they're in the home, is to close that deal. Like someone's raised their hand and said like, I need new windows. Like it's not a cold lead where it's like, hey, we're out knocking doors and trying to find someone. When they raise their hand, they need new windows. It's like we do everything that we can to get them closed. And so it's having an offer that they can't turn down. And it's like, hey, here's $2,000 off 10 or more windows. But then we have like a gift card that like our sales reps can carry around, and it's for $500. And it's like, hey, the husband and wife are thinking about it. It's like, it's just a little bit. It's like, look, if we're able to do it right now, I've got 3 of these gift cards left. I'll give you $500 off, like additional off of these windows. Boom. It's crazy. Like people is like here, that they just needed a little something more to get them to buy. And so then once they sign that contract, then we get everything manufactured, and it's about 6 to 8 weeks before those windows are then installed. Hey, present time, huh? Thank you.
Okay.
Ceremony. What does that ceremony speak, huh?
They're nice. Touch it. Yeah. All right. We want to thank Jake and Nate for coming. And when you guys leave, make sure to drop your papers at the back and then grab some ice cream on your way out. Thanks for coming.